Hey guys, today we will be doing something a little different here on the channel, in which we will be reviewing an indie game. This game is something that caught my interest a while back, and I've always had an interest in doing game reviews. Since I consider myself to be an independent creator, I figured why not do a review on an indie game for this channel's first game review. Today, we will be reviewing a video game called Spark the Electric Jester. Spark the Electric Jester is an original 2D platformer game for the PC developed by Fepard Games, a solo game developer who's also made a few well-known Sonic the Hedgehog fan games, some of which you may have heard of, such as Sonic Before the Sequel, Sonic After the Sequel, and Sonic Chrono Adventure. The game is mostly compared to the classic 2D Sonic the Hedgehog games in terms of gameplay, style, and level design, but it goes beyond that. This 2D platformer also takes inspiration from the Mega Man and Kirby series as well, and as you play more of the game, you can see the beautiful mix of these inspirations blended together to bring you a fresh game that feels smooth, fun, and well polished. Spark the Electric Jester follows the main protagonist, Spark, as he sets off on a journey to get his job back, after he finds himself being replaced by robots. The story is told through in-game cutscenes and a few hand-drawn animations, which are truly a joy to watch. However, the overall story of Spark can be rather confusing, as cutscenes that further the game's plot sometimes appear after a few levels, leaving you confused when the character makes a reference to a boss you defeated 5 levels ago. In this case, it doesn't help that each level will take you about 10 minutes to beat, but we'll talk about that later. In terms of story and characters, Spark is a go-with-the-flow, sometimes snarky character. His lightheartedness makes him quite cute and likable, but I never felt the sense of growth or strong enough character development throughout the game. During Spark's adventure, he finds out that the robots that replaced him are starting to take over the world, and for some reason, this doesn't seem as big as of a threat as it should. There is no actual world building in the game, and thus we aren't given a reason to care about it or its inhabitants. Most of the characters seem to be written in a millennial way, using both slang and teenage sarcasm, which I suppose gives some of the robot characters some humanistic qualities and charm, but I felt like most of the characters spoke in this fashion. The overall story for Spark feels a bit on the generic side, but don't let that drive you away. Where this game really shines is through everything else. As I said earlier, the game can be described as a mix of Sonic the Hedgehog, Kirby, and Mega Man. Each stage has a fantastic blend of speed, platforming, combat, and gimmicks to master. What's really great about this game is the difficulty in every stage. As said previously, each stage is about 10 minutes long and is broken up into at least 2-part sections, with a mini-boss in between to spice things up. Each stage has its own gimmick that makes the player adjust to, but slowly ramps up the difficulty so that the player feels like they're making satisfying progress. And I can't express how great the difficulty spike feels for this game. Every death feels fair. There are no bottomless pits, never-ending water levels, random spike pits, or cheap shot enemies. Okay, maybe there's a few of those. But the game builds you up for each challenging obstacle it throws at you, and it feels extremely satisfying to maneuver your way through and around certain parts of the game. The level design is long and quirky, and I don't mean this in a bad way. Each stage has its own gimmicks, such as the wind gust that will push you all around the map in Turbulence Plains, or the toxic sludge in Smog City that gives you a double jump side effect. While the levels are long, there is enough variety in each section to keep it fun, fluid, and challenging. You never really feel like any stage is dragging. Throughout the levels, the difficulty increasingly gets more challenging, forcing the player to have to take their time to master certain skills or techniques the game has to offer. My only complaint is the performance issues I've had towards the later stages of the game. I've noticed severe slowdowns and frame rate drops for the levels near the middle and end parts of the game. I've replayed them multiple times on different settings, and this still doesn't seem to fix anything. The creator has actually acknowledged these performance issues, but at the time of this review, he hasn't stated if or when they'll ever be addressed. These aren't game-breaking performance issues though, but they are certainly noticeable more towards the end of the game. Spark also has a variety of different forms he can switch into throughout the game. He is only able to equip 2 forms at a time, however. While you can't transform into all these forms at will through your first playthrough, they are scattered all around each level, giving an incentive to explore, as there are multiple branching paths in every stage. The forms in each stage usually correlate with the level's theme, and transforming into them will make each stage play a bit easier, as it seems they are designed around that particular form. Each stage has its own unique set of skills and playstyle. Some are more based around speed and keeping your momentum, while others are much slower and more combat focused. The game lets you experiment with each playstyle and does a good job staying hands-off in terms of how the player decides to play the game. Obviously, in some levels, a particular form will make the stage easier, but it's never really forced upon the player on how to play and experience the game. The soundtrack for Spark the Electric Jester is an absolute joy to hear, and I want a physical CD copy of it in my room. Each track does a fantastic job of covering the mood of each stage, and despite its influences, I still felt like I was playing an original game and not just a Sonic the Hedgehog clone. Post-game activities exist as well. Aside from the standard time attack you'd expect in a fast-paced action game such as this, there are 2 other modes that increase the difficulty and provide additional story to the game's main story. However, I am a bit disappointed that there is no boss rush feature, as some of the boss fights in this game are pretty fun with the right amount of challenge. While easy at first, most of them require you to learn their attack patterns and strategize instead of rushing them like you can on your first playthrough. The look and feel of Spark is also quite polished for an indie game developed by one person. The art style is quite unique and the levels feel alive with things always happening in the background, especially when the background parallaxes in a way that reveals more about the stage than before you started. It does a great job conveying a sense of story through its environment. In all, this is a great game and I advise you to check it out, especially for the price. There is a lot of value here and the game is quite lengthy. Your first playthrough should take you about 3 to 4 hours if you're just trying to rush through the game, which is actually quite long for an indie title of this genre. Not to mention the post-game extras you'll need to do if you're trying to 100% this game. I give this game a solid 9 out of 10 and would highly recommend picking this one up. There is currently a 3D sequel to this game out called Spark the Electric Jester 2. I guess we'll have to review that one next, huh? I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If so, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video so I know that you guys are enjoying this type of content for this channel. I'll leave a link in the description for the game so you guys can check it out as well. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.